Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin, Thursday, March 5th, at the end of a snowy, ugly day, except for the morning, which was quite beautiful back in my neighborhood, but out here in downtown or midtown Manhattan, things get really slushy and not so beautiful. And all the subways are delayed, and it'll be interesting to see if there's any issues getting home. And before I left today, I created a Google Plus page for Pipulate, and I'll announce it tomorrow, and probably the first 50 or so people to follow it will be the grandfathered in users. I really should be careful about grandfathered in. They will be the beta testers, because I will let people use the instance of Pipulate at pipulate.com, but it's going to be completely open. I'll create a page that shows all the pipulating documents. I got to keep it under a certain capacity because it's got to be able to accommodate all the users, and it's not the most robust multi-user app being designed to encourage you to break off your own private instance as it is, so that it gets turned into a wonderful distributed application with everyone using exactly the computing capacity that they need and that they themselves own, and there's no need for incredibly large scaled out instances. Although the one at Pipulate.com, I will be running a bunch of servers behind a load balancer, so that's how I handle multi-users. Every user who comes in, it'll based on a server availability, issue out the next server, and if I have, say, 10 virtual servers going, I'll be able to accommodate about 10 simultaneous users, and that's fine. Allowing maybe 50 on it. If that exceeds capacity, I'll either add more virtual servers or tell people it's time to move along and instantiate their own servers, which will be as easy as downloading Linux and having your own running on your desktop. No configuration, no installation, no admin rights needed. And of course it'll run slow, but that will be to give people a taste of running their own server, and then I'll encourage them on to a bunch of other possible options, including a Raspberry Pi. And creating the presentation, introducing it, is one of my top items tomorrow, and as is beefing out the documentation a little bit more. I'll probably start out with one Google slide presentation, one Google Doc, Word-like document, and then I'm going to dump a bunch more functions in. I'm going to be very tempted to add an APIs tab, because currently we have a scrapers tab, which lets you do all kinds of things, grabbing content off of page, looking for analytics code or certain word usage, basically anything you might want to do with screen scraping normal, HTTP pages. But there are many other common uses that hit APIs, and very often JSON APIs, and very often without a username and password login. They're just open things, like Open Graph is that way. So I could make Pipulate infinitely more usable by doing exactly what I did with the Scrapers tab, but instead now have an APIs tab, which would have to be a little more complicated, have different, quote, fields than the Scrapers tab. So it would have probably a method field, so you can switch it between the get and post method. It'll have to have a, shall we say, a body or payload, or maybe I'll call it JSON to be really obvious about what goes in there. And that would be if it's not the GET method. Most API endpoints that use the GET method, it's just a URL with some parameters, and bam, you've got JSON coming back. But other APIs require you to use the post method and to send up a whole JSON object. And the one I'm using to get Google Plus counts would be a perfect example of that. So the fields would be method for get or post, endpoint or URL, JSON request perhaps, and I'll have to decide whether to support login credentials. I could totally add a username and password field and have this able to go against things that require login, which would be a great way to pull information out from, you know, custom services that provide, you know, RESTful or JSON APIs. Which brings us to XML. XML should really be supported too, because there's a lot of these older APIs before the giant movement to JSON that worked with XML. So let's see what else. Oh, search engine position ranking. That's one. There's a little known API out there, which is SERPs. It's position ranking. It gets the top 8 unusually, not the top 10, which adds another level of complication to it. That's something that if you wanted to do SERPs on the top 8, that could be something that could just be slammed in the APIs tab for as long as that's still out there. I'm pretty sure that Google sunsetted that API, but I'm betting you so many things connect to it for old-fashioned SERPs. It doesn't take into account what BrightEdge has called blended rank, quick answers, universal search, local, but it will give you that underlying notion of the top 10 results for any keyword you put in, except it's the top 8. And that would be easily supported under the proposed APIs tab, and I'm going to be sorely tempted to implement that tomorrow, because that raises the whole usefulness out of the starting gate to everybody. Less custom functions necessary, less Python programming, and more copy and pasting examples that are present in every Pipulate spreadsheet in Google Spreadsheets. So that is my tomorrow. Presentation, documentation, more useful functions that are needed on a day in, day out basis by my coworkers, and maybe, just maybe, an APIs tab. Well, I'm just about at my subway stop. It's an 8-minute video, and so I'll say thanks for joining me. Hopefully I can do some coding on screen like I used to do tomorrow, and I hope to see you then, and don't forget to subscribe.